get it going. I try
Okay,
to make
cool.
it raw as possible. So, all right, we're live. Thanks, Melinda, for joining me today on the
Thanks for
Fire
having
Protection
me.
Fire Protection Podcast. This is, I've been, I, I've seen, learned about this standard, NFPA 420, and obviously a lot of huge growing market within the cannabis and marijuana side in North America and obviously the globe. And we were like, I was kind of tooling the idea of putting something out on 420 because, NFPA kind of went right into it and made the standard 420. So I was like, you know what? Let's get some information out there. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Melinda Amador, I'm Amador, sorry, from Code Next. Uh, just I guess give a little background to yourself and I guess why I'm having you on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm based out of Toronto. I am a chemical engineer by training, but I've been in the fire protection and life safety consulting space for the past 15 years across Canada. And it's really been in the last 3 years where cannabis extraction really took off in Canada with legalization of um, edibles and topicals and kind of processed materials versus
Mhm.
cultivation and plants. So, very with the starting up of the NFPA 420 committee, they asked me to I applied to be part of the committee and I was selected to be the chair. And it's been really exciting so far working with everybody. Um, it's such a dynamic group. So the new standard has started to develop is really for the cultivation, growing, and extraction of cannabis products in both in kind of facilities and operation side. So it really kind of pulls different requirements of the codes and a lot of different codes that we already have out there, kind of mapping them together. And with my background in fire code and building code and hazardous materials, the cannabis sector has been a really fun home and a really great space to work in. We've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different producers and in Canada in kind of various stages of growth. And so to see it coming together with a formalized standard that I expect will have like such great pickup and across multiple, um, I guess, countries and sectors, it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, it's a huge growth, and I think Canada's a little bit ahead of the U.S. with regards to laws and all that, and how it's being state to state is very different.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
yeah, it's been interesting to see because I think stateside in the US, it's kind of been on a level that there's been legalization and legalization to different degrees in terms of cultivation and kind of more formalized process. Whereas in Canada, there was kind of a track where it was just legalized federally
Right.
across. And originally, it was only for cultivation, for commercial and kind of consumer use. It was originally for cultivation, and then in 2019 in Canada, it became online for kind of your general consumer to purchase edibles or to purchase, dabs and waxes and all kinds of kind
Right.
of formulated products. Whereas again, I think it's kind of taking on a state by state approval approach,
Sure.
which means there are kind of pockets of knowledge and pockets of spaces where you have a lot of expertise and a lot of experience. Some spaces that really, it's going to be very novel and very new, and there's a lot of ground to cover and material to understand as legalization moves forward.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Obviously the grow operations have been there on the medical side for a while, and
Yes.
even on the hemp side, and certain states, right, where hemp is legal or being produced. But and there obviously there's some there's a I talked to some fire protection engineer designers working in the New England area where it is legal and it's being a lot of the are going on, and they're having issues on issues for hazard classification, occupancy classification, and I forgot the one. He sent me something. It's called Agrify or whatever, and essentially it looks like one of those U-Haul storage places, but compartments of little grow
Oh, yeah.
kind of pods, right? But it's stacked 3 or 4 tall, and it was being classed as like an ordinary hazard group 1 or something. And there's so many plastics and metals in there, and it's being stacked to the ceiling. It's kind of like, all right, somebody's got to take control on this. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's really where the new 420 standard will what I'm hoping is that we create a bit of a roadmap for users and for designers and practitioners, because cannabis does introduce a few novel fire safety elements, but for the most part, these are these are hazards and concepts that we have a good system of tools accommodate for, right? Like we know how to design buildings, we know how to classify, we know how to deal with solvents, we know how to sprinkler systems and suppression and fire alarm systems.
sure.
And a lot of those requirements translate really well into the cannabis space. What we see is that sometimes it's the practitioners or the owners and operators might be kind of a new experience
Yeah.
in these spaces. There's also issues in terms of like the speed of growth. So this isn't a slow, moderate growth approach for a company. Are growing very, very quickly. They're modifying their products, on such a rapid pace
Yeah.
that catching up with kind of your building classification and your sprinkler design can sometimes be a challenge. And one of the other things that's a little bit unique to cannabis, I would say, is really that scale of operations. So, codes and standards that are really well developed for bulk facilities. We have bulk
Right.
extraction facility standards in NFPA. We have dust hazards in a lot of our standards. But cannabis is more of a proof of concept or pilot scale, kind of that craft
Hmm.
scale of production. It's really kind of more at a kind of an artistry level, and it's
Sure.
smaller batches than what you
Right.
might expect from a full-blown distillery facility. So the hazards are there, but some of the measures that we see in the codes may not reflect the scale
Right.
of processing in cannabis. And so I think that's also what we're really trying to capture in the standard.
Yeah, that's interesting to say because even on the on the alcohol side, right? Obviously, in the bulk, they've got that figured out. But I think that even the alcohol industry has an issue too, on the craft side because
They
I've
do.
been into distilleries, in the Northeast and everywhere else where, yeah, I mean, so it's highly flammable liquid, but they got regular 5.6 K factor heads, in an uh old or newer warehouse, so it wasn't
Yep.
classified for that. So I'm
Yep. Or attached to a restaurant. uh,
yeah, exactly,
what we often
exactly.
see up here. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's like bulk versus craft cannabis is kind of an interesting term. It's probably going to make its way into the mainstream more, right?
I mean, I think that's certainly where in Canada where we're seeing a lot of the the kind of as we're navigating this new market, as we're kind of people are onboarding different solvents and they're looking at different products and trying to see what consumers are really willing to pay and how much they
Right.
need, that this kind of proof of concept craft scale is really what we see the most of right now.
Gotcha.
And it's really in a bit of a gray zone of the code, if that makes sense. Like the code's usually pretty black and white, like you're in this category, you're in this class. But
Right.
sometimes, due to the scale, the cannabis work kind of falls into that gray space.
Well, and the standard will have to be, and I'm on some of the newer standards. One new standard for some of the new technology with remote inspections, and right in the standard they say, hey, whatever we write in this code has got to keep up with the technology. So we're not gonna, NFPA is usually every 3 or 4, usually 3 years. So technology is going to change, and the market's going to change in that amount of time drastically, probably. So you got to make sure it's in the code that way. And if you could amend it, with some new technology that comes out, you got to be open to that, right? And traditionally, fire protection's a little bit slower to adopt in codes and standards, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a huge opportunity. So
Yeah,
how did it come about? How did they find you? I mean, you're the chair of NFPA 420, which is kind of
right,
crazy.
right.
What,
It is.
how did that come
It's
about?
really so there was it was last year when NFPA had put out kind of a public call for interest on the development of the new standard. And as part of putting in, putting in a kind of a support in favor of developing this new standard, you had to say you would be willing to be on the committee, essentially. That's the way I read it. And so you essentially have to say, yeah, this, and I would be part of this committee, and this is my, background.
Hmm.
As a practitioner, doing fire safety in Canada, we have our own codes. We have our own national and provincial building codes and fire codes. And
Hmm.
ULC in Canada has developed some guides to support the cannabis industry. But certainly, our codes will often call out standards or will use NFPA standards as guides. So, doing as much work as we do right now in the cannabis sector, I really having a localized source of code requirements in relation to cannabis. So I was a big so of the new standard, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I got an email back saying we'd like you to chair the committee. I think my Canadian background, they maybe saw that as Tory
Yeah,
in
right, right.
supporting the development of the standard.
So
So
a little bit controversial here, even though most states have
yeah,
some sort of law around it. But no,
hopefully,
that's great. And
hopefully
I,
it
and I know Code
comes online.
Next, you know, uh, Code Next is obviously big in that sector, right? They found an opportunity to really to push into that industry, and it's been great for them as well. And they've kind of made a little niche for themselves, being a fire protection engineer for that kind of that sort of industry.
Yeah, we were. It was really fit for us. We actually had a consultant that operates in the States that had a client that was moving up and doing a project in Canada originally. And they reached out to us, kind of cold called and said, hey, is this something that you could support my client with? And we ended up hitting it off a lot of really great calls. We were able to kind of take that client and help support them find a space in Canada for their product. And that really just got the ball rolling. And my analogy is kind of like someone threw us the ball and we just with it. Like we kind of
Yeah, no,
recognized
that's
that
good.
cannabis was growing and it was a really great fit because it is the building code and the building and fire code consulting kind of building code is one side of the compliance approach and fire code is another side. But in this case, the fire code's a really big driving factor, the
Interesting.
design and operation of the space.
Mhm.
And with my background in chemical engineering, it's a really fun space to work in because the technology, as you said, like changes very. They're changing their solvents. It seems like every
Yeah.
other month,
Oh, really?
and
Wow.
so it's always kind of an opportunity to kind of strategically think about how the code would apply and they can use existing facilities or, you
What
know,
solvents? Sorry to interrupt. What solvents are they
yeah,
using? It's just interesting.
right.
I thought it was like a butane thing, or something similar.
So LPG. So there's butane and propane kind of blends that are being used as a solvent. Um, I think that's what's become more popular. 3 or 4 years ago, we saw a lot more requests on, ethanol, kind of our typical liquid solvents. We're seeing a lot more of the what I would call LPG or hydrocarbon extraction.
Oh, interesting.
And and so it's regulated differently province by province, because LPG, or hydrocarbon are often regulated, under the gas code. Similar
Okay.
in the States, you kind of have the gas code. So in
Sure, sure.
Canada, that's actually a different jurisdiction. And so it's a totally different code framework, when you start introducing LPG to your site. And so that's been really cool to navigate as a code, a really
Yeah,
fun
sure.
puzzle to figure out. And again, as we progress through this, industry, every time we kind of feel like we kind of have to invent an approach. We've got to pull together 4 or 5 different codes and piece them together for this scale, for this volume and process. And I, I think the NFPA 420 is such a valuable resource
Yeah,
to the industry, because you kind of take away that, puzzling. We have all of the codes. We just don't
right.
have a framework. Someone navigate those in a consistent and effective way. And
Yeah,
if we don't have the framework, then you're relying on your local authority to be
and then
comfortable with it and figure it out, or you're relying on, your engineer who might be seeing it for the first
right.
time to figure it out. We have consistency as an industry, and there's more likelihood we could have gaps, which we
Yeah,
don't want
and
to
I
see.
I think the committee's made up of a wide variety, from obviously the cannabis industry as well as fire protection as engineers and different manufacturers. So it was cool to see that they're trying to make a broad range and um, stakeholders as possible on that to
Absolutely.
with it, right? So
Yeah, we've got quite a large committee. We've got about 50 people
wow,
on the standard, which is,
wow,
um, exciting that there's
yeah,
engagement and interest, and coming from all different, um, aspects of fire protection and life safety. I think is fairly unique to cannabis is that are contributing to the code development with the most experience are usually coming from, um, from the illegal operations originally, from the spaces where it wasn't permitted, and now we're in a legalized space. And certainly in the codes development space, we've seen, great recognition and acceptance and welcoming to people. Help us build these codes, help us to understand your process, help us to the products, so that we can make sure it's being regulated appropriately and safely, and
yep,
so that it helps to legitimize, the entire market, and it helps
yeah.
to kind of the space and let everybody, join and participate. And that's how we're really going to get the best standard and be meaningful to the industry.
No, it's exciting. Do you know when
I
proposal right now?
have a
Any
timeline.
idea? Okay.
Yes. Aggressive timeline is publication for 2025,
Okay.
26 of the
Well,
new standard. That's
and
that's
there'll be templates
very
out there at
aggressive.
that point, and they'll
Yeah.
HJs will be
Yeah,
able to
it'll
do
go
the
out for
adjust.
public, it'll go out for public comment. All of that will happen before publication. So there'll definitely be material that's out there.
Nice.
And certainly a lot of the states have already done a lot of work. Where you have legalization, there's a lot of, and, um, experience that we can tell in the absence of NFPA 420 in the
Yeah,
meantime.
I told a couple of the fire protection engineers I talked to, I'm like, you guys, you should jump in on this state. I mean, if you're getting that much work from it, I think your knowledge would uh, everything out. So, a couple of them were open to it and gonna investigate, but I think people are still, getting involved in the process is a little, I don't want to say it's confusing, but it's a little daunting. But once you're in, it's a lot of fun, and you can collaborate with a lot of different individuals. So,
It is, and I've only ever the committee in COVID times, so I haven't
all
had
right,
the opportunity to, experience the in-person
right,
and
yeah.
meeting format. Um,
I like the
so
remote
that's
style.
exciting.
I just got on in the remote in the COVID times too, and it's a lot easier to make the meetings. And I feel like it is Inspect Point and the Fire Protection Podcast will be at the NFPA in Boston this. It'll be good to see people on the committees that I've been seeing virtually for years, right? So
Exactly, exactly. We're getting a lot done, and I think it's probably moving much more quick in terms of standards development, having the opportunity to do it remotely and having the
sure,
opportunity to kind of get everybody together a little bit more easily. I really like to kind of see everybody and
yeah, right,
have a chance to get to know the and really kind of make those connections, because that's another big part of being part of the standards development process. Is it's just such a great network.
yep.
Everybody's really so motivated and engaged in industry, and it kind of just gets you more excited and
Yeah, yeah, it's super
amped
niche
up
and
for it.
the providing value to the public, right? So solving some problems that,
That's
um, yeah, they're a lot of fun, right? Especially this one.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
one weird, what, have you seen any interesting like fire protection design methods? I mean, I'm just envisioning some detection systems, fire alarm, obviously fire things, but maybe some crazier detection systems to detect heat at a certain overload of some of the
Right,
function. And is it just sprinkler suppression, or is there any like crazy gas suppression or gaseous
right.
suppression, or what have you seen
Certainly,
so far?
certainly. So there are some applications where we'll see some kind of special suppression system, usually more on the deluge sprinkler
Oh
side
wow,
versus
really?
yeah versus a chemical suppressant approach. Um, but one of the things that is kind of associated with the hydrocarbon extraction that you were talking about, that we see more and more, is more of it's called like an extraction pod or an extraction booth. So what we're seeing and what's kind of becoming more codified, depending on where you are right now, is it looks kind of like a paint spray booth, or it looks
Oh,
like a kind of a walk-in fume hood
sure.
where you're doing the hydrocarbon extraction. And that enclosure, whether it's kind of designed in-house or whether you're getting a listed assembly for that product, it usually will have LEL detection for your gases.
Yep.
It will have additional ventilation. We've seen some kind of flame detection approaches in these spaces as well. So you're really kind of isolating the hazard in that way. So it's not like and again, it kind of suits well the crafts, right? This,
Sure.
you'd have like one unit that can be operated by one or two people. Maybe in
Right.
a booth, you might have two units scale where you can confine it to a room, and you can design your protection system really focus on that room and really, I guess, focus all of those protection features in that space. So you're not redesigning the entire building.
Yeah.
You don't need
Yeah.
water supply in
Yep.
excess of what you might normally need for the entire building.
Right.
And it suits the scale for cannabis right now. You can't
Interesting.
really translate that into a bulk production space.
Right. That's
Uh,
more on the though, right? That's not on the
that
growing up.
is.
Growing, you need
Yeah, yeah, definitely not cultivation. That's on
yep.
the extraction side, the processing and making
Interesting.
oils
Almost like
that are then
a
yeah,
17, which is that, which obviously it'd be a little different for cannabis, but in
y-
a similar fashion. Yeah.
it's similar in that it's going to have, dedicated ventilation, it's going to have classified electrical devices, it's going to have detection and monitoring, and you're going to have better right? You're going to have crash bars or kind of panic hardware in the
Yep.
right direction, et cetera. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, I'm really excited to see as this as it progresses and you guys you know, push the standard along.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make this a shorter podcast since it's like a proposed standard and just wanted to obviously introduce it on 420, which is kind of fun. We usually at the end of the podcast, I don't know if you've heard them before, but we do a something called the quick response round where I
Oh,
fire a
neat.
couple questions at you. Just you just essentially it's uh, random questions that you don't know are coming, and just
Okay.
learn a little bit more about you and obviously the topic. So we'll
Cool.
kind of end off with that.
No
So
pressure.
no, you're good. Is what's the zaniest story that you've seen in any walkthrough of a facility? What's the craziest
The
story?
zaniest story.
I obviously don't
Or
give names
facility.
or any of that, but
Oh man. Um, I'm trying to. I'm trying to think now.
is there any
I
facilities that
see.
you've seen where, or individuals see? Yeah, I can just imagine, right? Some of the
I mean,
individuals in there.
certainly. I mean, certainly. Honestly, a lot of the cannabis space, they're really tight.
Oh,
They're
nice.
they're being very careful. It's really clean. It's really organized. Any of the spaces that we've seen have been lovely. There have been some spaces that we've seen, they've taken them over so quickly that there's been, old equipment in the space, kind of in a back room. That there was one,
Mhm.
then they had this kind of big green hopper that went up to went down into the room, and then the piping just stopped. I asked, I was like, hey, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And they had no idea. They had no idea. They'd taken the space over like a year ago, and they were already kind of in full production. And they just
Oh, wow.
everything
Wow.
again moves so quickly,
Sure.
um, that they had just kind of bought the building as in and cleaned up their part of it and
That's
went about their
crazy.
business. Yeah, but ultimately, all the spaces we've been in have been
That's good. That's good to hear.
really
You
good
kind of
to
think of
see.
this
Yeah.
the stories out there of, I don't know. People have a field day with this topic. So,
Oh man. Well, and I mean, certainly we've seen a lot of horror stories.
yeah,
We have had we haven't been involved directly in a lot of the stories that we see are, not operating within the code.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Next question. So I know you did some fire testing and code consulting prior. I see you're involved in the foam
Oh
mattress
yeah.
side. Did you ever get to see a foam mattress fire test?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Part of my fourth year project was testing mattress uh,
Oh
in a furniture
gosh.
calorimeter. So
Wow.
we were kind of comparing cone calorimeter foam test results to furniture scale calorimeter test results and trying to see if we could do if you could do the cone calorimeter test to get an equivalent furniture calorimeter result. Just because of the size, it's a lot easier to burn a 4 inch by 4 inch square of foam versus a full size mattress.
Interesting. Yeah. I always thought
Yeah.
that would be the craziest fire test to see. I've seen them, storage test at FM up here in Rhode Island, but never, yeah, foam one's just it's just
Oh
wild.
yeah,
Or just a
it was
mattress
it
in
was
general,
it was
right?
nuts because we couldn't light it. We couldn't actually get it to ignite the with the test standard approach
Yeah. Yeah.
because it was a fire resistant foam.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
Right.
we had a propane torch that we would just
Oh my
like
gosh.
it for about 20 seconds until it melted enough
Oh, wow.
that we got a pool fire, and then it just
And then it took off.
lit up. Yeah, it was a good one.
That's crazy. All right, last question. And I don't know, I got a little, somebody told me to ask you this. Um,
Oh.
what's your favorite nomenclature of a strain out there? I don't know if you've seen them. I don't know
Oh.
how involved you are. No, there's some crazy
um,
ones out there.
there's it's such a creative industry. Say it's such a creative industry, and it's really fun and it's clever. I
Sure.
don't really have any particular product or brand or name that I can like push. Um,
Market, right? Yeah.
but I always liked when they have dabs, when they call products dabs. I just think
Oh
it's
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
It reminds me of like
That's kind of funny.
bingo or
All
dancing or
right.
something. It's just like such a fun.
The kids' drawings there, right?
Yeah.
With the ink. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up here. I guess where can people find obviously go to nfpa.org, go to the code
Yes.
standard 420, but is there anywhere to find Code Next or yourself just for the listenership
Um,
if they have questions?
yeah. Questions, you can always email me. It's mamador at codenext.ca, which is mamador at codenext.ca. Mamador.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
again,
thank
thanks for
you so
coming on
much.
in short time frame and looking to get some good traction. Everybody has fun with the NFPA 420 standard, but I think there's a big part of the industry that and it's one of the biggest problems in the industry of how do we protect these spaces. So
It really is. I really appreciate you reaching out and bringing the standard. It's very exciting. And yeah, as much as it's kind of funny that we named the standard 420, it it does really highlight a need in the industry, and it's quite a serious topic. And I'm
yep.
glad that it's getting and it's becoming more legitimate and legalized, and we can kind of move forward on making it a safe space. And um, it doesn't need to be taboo. So it's
Yeah, totally,
really exciting.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Melinda.
Thank you so much.